Thank you for coming to this evening's sidebar. Tonight we welcome back Dr. Michael Carroll from Manchester Metropolitan University, who you might remember from about a year ago. He gave a very popular talk with a very popular video about the evolution of the penis. Tonight he's back to talk to us about declining fertility. So thank you for coming back, Michael. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite, and thank you for the introduction. Right, over the past 10 years or so, news headlines have been reporting plummeting sperm counts, decline in fertility, alarming headlines like human extinction because of the 60% drop in sperm, fertility crisis, sperm counts are down worldwide, and researchers are discovering why. Humans could face reproductive crisis. UK's fertility rates have fallen faster. Fertility rates in England and Wales dropped to a new low. This is a global thing. And it's not only an issue with reproductive health, it's also economics as well. So over the next, however how long, I'm going to talk to you about, give you the reasons as to why this might be happening and the impacts in societal, but also economic as well. So we measure total fertility based on a metric called total fertility rates, and that's what's declining. That's what the research is showing. So fertility rates, or total fertility rates, is a metric. It's expressed in the number of children a woman will have within a reproductive cycle, and this is relative to her age and area. So it will vary with country to country. So we do see a decline in fertility rates. Women are having fewer children over their lifestyle. And if you look at this graph here, from the 1800s, you can see on average about 6 children per woman. And then there's a decrease and then a slight increase in the 1960s. That would be the baby boomers. Then we see quite a steep decline in the number of babies. And then the projected continuing decline. If we look at it in particular regions, this is Europe, quite a steep decline here from the mid-1900s right down, and then Americas, little jump in the middle there in the 1960s. Asia, quite a rapid decline there, and Africa as well. Africa is still relatively high, but still, projected to decrease as well. And if you look at the data from the United Nations, you can see the decline from about between 5 and 6 babies or children per woman down to about 2.25, the latest data. That's quite a significant drop, and it's continuing decline as well. If you look at the UK, we can see that it's about 1.6 children per woman. That's what's happening here. So it's the fertility decline is happening globally, but there's still quite a lot of countries, in particular those in the African continent, that are still quite high. And you can see here some of the highest numbers here is in Somalia and Niger and Chad. These are African countries. These are poor economic countries, and they tend to have higher fertility rates. If we look at the lowest fertility rates, you can see Hong Kong, the Republic of Korea, some European countries as well. So you're looking at Spain and Italy. These are all below 2, all below 1, or just hovering above 1. And that's quite serious. So those countries are not replenishing their population through having more babies. Now, if this happens, you can have a problem with replacement level. You need to replace the population that are dying. So as people the mortality rate decreases, increases, you need to replace that with babies. And it's called a replacement level fertility. And this is basically the total fertility rate, which is the average number of children born per woman, at which the population exactly replaces itself from one generation to the next. So you need to replace the mother, you need to replace the father, and then you need to have a security that you can replace the other ones as well. And this rate is roughly 2.1. So that's your replacement level. That's your baseline. It can vary from country to country, and there are various other things you can take into consideration, like mortality rates within different countries. But 2.1 is that's your level of replacement rate. And if you go back to the UK's graph here, you can see there's replacement level fertility for the UK, and the UK's fertility rate is 1.6. So we're in trouble in terms of our fertility rates. Now, if you look at the Republic of Korea and you look at Hong Kong, that's down to 0.7 in Korea, in the Republic of Korea, and about 0.8 in Hong Kong. China, Russia, many other countries are having serious problems with their fertility rates because a lot of them are falling below this replacement level. Now, you can ask, if fertility rates are drastically falling, why isn't the global population falling? So we can see the global humans have populated the Earth quite significantly. You can see within this graph here, about maybe 1,500 years ago, population really started to increase and then creep right up and then shoot up around the mid 1800s or 1800s, around the start of the in correlation with the Industrial Revolution. And you can see here, so nearly every 1700 it was 600 million, in 1800 it was 990 million, then in 1900 1.65 billion, and then you can see it goes up a billion maybe every 10, 15, 20 years to where we are now, so 8 billion. So the UN estimates that we'll continue to have a population increase to about maybe between 10 and 11 billion, then it will taper off and start to decline naturally. Now, is that a problem? We're having so many people still within the population growth. India has overtaken China in terms of population, so it's about 1.48, I think, billion people overtaking China. You can see on the list here the population in various countries here as well. So, if fertility rates are drastically falling, why is it a global population rise? Well, people are living longer and healthier. And this is down to an increase in healthcare systems. So we have a better healthcare system, better innovation, better sanitation, all of this. And this all feeds into longevity and healthier aging. We also have lower child mortality. So babies are surviving birth and surviving the first 4 years of life as well, first 4 years, up into their, to old age now. And this is across the globe. It's not just in high GDP countries, it's across the globe. And speaking of GDP is a big indicator of health as well, of human index health. And you can see here that if countries have high GDP, that will feed into infrastructure like healthcare, and that then facilitates the growth of a healthy population. So that's why we're having an increase in population, not so much because of increase in birth rates, because we're living longer. So we're seeing a dramatic rise or dramatic fall in human fertility rate. So why is that? What is the cause of this rise in infertility? First of all, what is infertility? Well, infertility is defined by the WHO as a failure to achieve a pregnancy after 12 months or more of actively trying. So you have to be actively trying for 12 months, and if you haven't got pregnant within that 12 months, it could be an issue with your fertility. And it's relatively common. So about 1 in 6 people reportedly globally have experienced or will experience some level of subfertility or infertility. And it's considered in many parts a disease of the reproductive system. That's another definition of the WHO. So if we look at the causes of infertility, this is the data from the Human Fertilization Embryology Authority. This is the governing body that controls or regulates IVF clinics in the UK. About 37% is attributed to male factor infertility. And then about 31.2% is female factor, where you have endometriosis, tubal disease, ovulatory disorders. And then you have about 32% that's it's unknown. So the diagnostic criteria for infertility is normal, but yet the couple are still having difficulties having a child. So that data is from the UK in 2016, and it might be the same in other countries. In parts of Africa or Asia, the causes might be more infection rather than ovulatory or endometriosis. But it's roughly a portion 50-50, 50 male, 50% female causation. And if we look at female factor fertility, we can look at the causes here. So endocrine disorders or disorders of hormones that regulate the menstrual cycle or ovulation, the maturation of the egg called folliculogenesis. So, an example would be polycystic ovarian syndrome. That can cause infertility in females. Tubal factor infertility. This is where the tube, or the fallopian tube, the oviduct, becomes blocked. usually as a result of infection or untreated infections like chlamydia, gonorrhea. Uterine infertility, so that's infertility affecting the womb. Asherman syndrome, which is caused by scarring of the endometrium, abnormalities of the uterus, endometriosis, etc. All of those can contribute to uterine infertility. And diminished ovarian reserve. That means the number of eggs a woman will have for her reproductive life cycle decreases, both in number and quality. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on that because that's an important factor to bear in mind moving on. So what do we mean by diminished ovarian reserve? What do we mean by ovarian reserve? Well, at 20 weeks gestation, a female fetus will have all the eggs that she's going to have for her reproductive life cycle. And they're established within her ovary, or fetal ovary. Soon thereafter, those numbers decline rapidly. So you can see in this graph here, this is taken from 1968, Terry Baker's work. And more recent studies have demonstrated it might be maybe 12 million germ cells or oocytes that are established in the fetal ovary. You can see it's about 7 million here in this data here. Then even before birth, it goes down to 2.5 million. And by the time she's born, it's roughly around maybe 500,000, 800,000. By the time she reaches puberty, it could be about maybe 600,000 and then continually decreasing. So the number of eggs that she has decreases. There's a limited number of eggs. They're established at 20 weeks when she's developing in her mother's womb, and they decline rapidly thereafter. Okay, so that's the main issue. That's the number. You can see in this data here, if you look at the number of follicles, so within her ovary, those immature eggs will be embedded in tiny little follicles. During every ovarian cycle, those follicles will mature, and then one is ovulated. And you can see in this data the number of follicles and the age of the woman as she gets older. So you can see a gradual decline, and then there's a broken stick model here. It's quite a significant break or drop in the number of follicles available. I think that occurs around 37. It's called the Faddy effect by Faddy, the guy who published this data here. So past the age of 35, 37, rapid decrease in the number of follicles available for her reproductive cycle. So she's limited in the number of eggs that she has available. This just demonstrates what it would look like in an ovary. So you can see birth. Those are the follicles here. Each follicle here, and within each follicle there's an immature egg. This is a girl at birth, 25 years old. You can see very few follicles in her cortex. And by the time she's 50, you'd be searching for follicles. So that's 2 years just before menopause, onset of menopause, where there'd be very few, if any, follicles for her. So she would reach the end of her reproductive life there. Now, it's not just the number of eggs that are available, it's the quality of eggs. Remember, those eggs, those immature follicles, are established when she's 20 weeks old in her fetus, and they remain at a state of arrest. It's called meiosis, prophase of meiosis. Okay, the egg looks like this in a follicle. It's called a germinal vesicle egg, and you can see there's the egg here. This thing here is called a zona pellucida, and that's the nucleus of the egg. So 20 weeks inside her mother's womb, those eggs will be established in her ovary, and then they arrest, they pause, they don't develop any further until puberty, when they're activated to become a mature egg and then ovulated. So if we look at this schematically, within that nucleus, chromosomes are arranged where they're kind of stuck together. They cross over and they're kind of stuck together. They're stuck together by a protein known as cohesin. And that cohesin has to be active and maintain its function for as long as those eggs exist. And that could be decades, 4 or 5 decades. And this is a major problem, because if you have any errors in those chromosomes, if they're not stuck together properly, they'll fall apart much easier. And that causes irregular chromosomal numbers in the eggs. And you can see this here. So aneuploidy means that there's an abnormal number of eggs, of chromosomes in the eggs. And you can see it here. So as the woman gets older, it's quite an increase in aneuploid eggs. That is the abnormal chromosomal number. We do have it's kind of a U shape here. So you do have an increase of aneuploidy or abnormal chromosomes in younger women's eggs as well. That's because that protein is a little bit more, it's overexpressed, a bit more active. And then as she gets older, moves into her mid-20s, it becomes a little bit more established, and then it starts to become less functional as she gets older. And what does it do? This causes errors in development and chromosomal abnormalities such as Down syndrome. So trisomy 21, you can see as the woman gets older, the prevalence of that occurring increases quite significantly. Patu's syndrome called trisomy 13 and Edwards syndrome, trisomy 18, all increasing quite significantly with age. And that induces miscarriages, abnormal embryo development, and embryo lethality. So for women, you have this window. You can see here, as she gets, her likelihood of getting pregnant decreases, and her likelihood of infertility increases with age, because the number of oocytes or eggs that she has available decrease, and the quality of those eggs decrease as well. So age is a major factor with women. That's a window of fecundity, I call it. That's a capacity to reproduce. That's very limited. And that shuts quite significantly past the age of 30, 35, 37. Advanced maternal age is called. So what about men? Similar thing with men in terms of hormones. So hypogonadism is a condition where men produce lower testosterone and fewer sperm, or no sperm at all. It's called hypogonadism. So if there's any errors in the hormones that the man is producing, testosterone, or those hormones that control the level of testosterone, that can cause hypogonadism. Obstructions of the tubes, if you like. So the vast difference here, this tube here, this is responsible for transporting the sperm from the testes out through an ejaculate. That can be blocked, just like the fallopian tube of women can be blocked, usually through infection, or untreated infections, or surgeries. Sperm dysfunction, sperm can't swim, they can't bind to the egg, or there's some other errors within the development of the sperm. And also psychosocial issues. So men who have, or psychosexual issues, men who have psychosexual issues or stress, that can result in erectile dysfunction. And genetics. So a common genetic cause of infertility is Klinefelter syndrome. It's about 1 in 500 live births. This is where they have an extra X chromosome, and then they're not producing enough sperm or any sperm at all. The main causes of male infertility would be a condition known as varicocele. Varicocele is a pooling of blood in the scrotum, in the testes. And basically, it's like varicose veins within this piniform plexus. So you have all these blood vessels here, they dilate, and then you get a pooling of blood, an increase in scrotal temperature, and that can cause a decrease in sperm production or spermatogenesis. Endocrinopathies is basically any pathologies that can cause an error in the signaling and production of the hormones that are important for male reproduction. Genetics, as I mentioned earlier. Infections is quite a big one, in particular in lower income countries, parts of Africa, where they're untreated, and that can cause infertility. And then injury, testicular torsions, that can cause infertility as well. So damaging the testes with a hammer. Now, this can result in what's known as primary and secondary hypogonadism. So primary hypogonadism is when you damage the testicles or function of the testicles. Secondary hypogonadism, where you damage or you disturb the hormones from the brain to the testes. It's called the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. And these are all the known causes of male infertility. Now, there's another issue that's come to light over the past number of years. And this is a decline in sperm count, a temporary decline in sperm count. Men are producing less sperm now. Not only are they producing less sperm, the quality of the sperm is declining, and the ability of the sperm to swim, the motility, is declining as well. This was data that came out in 2017, and this was responsible for the news headlines that I showed you earlier when I opened up. And what they showed in this study is that there was a significant decline in sperm counts, and about 50 to 60% decline among men in unselected men in fertility from North America, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. So Western, more higher income countries. And what they thought what might have been the causation there was the Western diet or pollution. They repeated this study in 2023, and they've shown that globally there was a decrease in sperm count by 40%. And not only that, it went from 101 million per mil in 1973 to 49 million per mil in 2018. And it's declining or decreasing by 2.64% per year. So that's a continuing decline of sperm count. So men are producing fewer sperm in their testes. Men are also, across the globe, have a lower testosterone as well. That's the hypogonadism. So what's causing this? What's causing this decline in sperm count and testosterone? There's been a few causations. It's most likely a combination of many factors and not a singular factor. It's very difficult to find a single factor that causes infertility. So it can be diet, particularly the Western diet, the high fatty processed foods that you have, which causes obesity, and obesity can be linked to infertility. Smoking, there is some link between mobile phones, however, that's not been corroborated by repeated research. Increased scrotal temperature is a major thing. That can, if you tight underwear and occupations that can result in increased scrotal temperature, that can cause decreased sperm count. Various medicines, either medicinal or recreational drugs, and occupation, so working in hot environments, and old age. Old age can cause a decrease in sperm quality, sperm count. But it's not just lifestyle, there's environment as well. So environmental pollutants that pollute the air, pollutes the water, these can get into the water streams and infiltrate the physiology, and that can result in a decrease in sperm count. In particular, chemicals that are found in plastics called endocrine disrupting chemicals. They leach out of the plastics. And these endocrine disrupting chemicals, they mimic hormones like estrogen, the female hormones. And if you're increasing those chemicals within your body, that will cause a decrease in the function of those hormones. Now, as you can see in this slide here, where the various sources of these, it can be from plasticides, you can find them in plastics, flame retardants, so fire extinguishers, etc., pesticides, phytoestrogens, that can be within the environment, but also within the diet, people, soya type meals, food, and industrial chemicals as well. And it may not be a single, because there's dozens of these endocrine disrupting chemicals. It might not be a single compound, but a synergy of compounds working together to cause the issue that we're seeing here. So that's where we are in terms of trying to figure out what's going on with the decline in sperm count. It's a mixture of things, really. And it's also how the individual has been exposed to these chemicals. It can be in utero, so the development gonad is exposed to these chemicals, and that can cause errors in the development of the testes of the young male. There's also an increase in testicular cancers as well. So what we're seeing is an increase in these endocrine disrupting chemicals being produced globally, an increase in testicular cancers, and a decrease in sperm count. And it's all around from the 1960s up. And it depends on the exposure as well. So it's not just in utero. The infant's, child, and adult exposures through their life course can be exposed to various chemicals that can cause a decrease in the sperm quality and count. So is there anything else that can cause a decrease in these fertility rates? What's happening? So we looked at decline in sperm count, and that's for men. But there are other things as well. There are socio-educational factors. So they're not just pathologies of the reproductive system that can cause a decline in fertility rates. There's socio-educational factors. And the average age of the first child of women that women have first kids is increasing, and advanced maternal age. Now, if you look at socio-education factors, a lot of interesting data has come out recently describing the link between that and decline in fertility rates. If a girl or girls go to school, and the longer they spend in school, either graduating from high school or secondary school or university, the fewer babies that they will have, the fewer children they will have. If you compare that to girls who don't go to school or only a small portion of school life, they have more kids, more babies. So fertility rate is intimately linked to the education of girls and women. And you can see this here in this data here, in this graph here. You can see these countries here on this axis here, the horizontal axis. This is the average years of schooling of women of reproductive age. And then you can see the fertility rate here. So women in Taiwan, Japan, United States, Israel, all have spend longer in school, have fewer kids, and compared to Niger, the Democratic Republic of Congo, etc., have more children. So you have, if a girl stays in school longer, she'll have fewer children.
Excuse me, where's the United Kingdom on that?
It's in there somewhere.
Okay.
And what that does, the data is there. What that does is that increases the average age of the first child. So the longer a woman is in school, goes to university, becomes part of the working culture, if you like, becomes part of the workforce. She spends longer in work. I'm not saying anything against that. I think it's a great thing. Spends longer in work, and then gets involved in a career, and as a result, delays her time for first child. And you can see this here. I'm colorblind, so I can't really tell what color this is, but the darker colors represent the age of the mother when she has her first child. Okay, and you can see across the world here where this is more prevalent. If you look at the EU, post-Brexit, of course, you can see that the average age is about 29.4 for a woman to have a first child. In Ireland, it's 30.7. In Spain, 31.1. Portugal, 29.9. Italy, 31.3. Remember, Spain and Italy have very low fertility rates, so it kind of fits in with the data here. And if you look at the UK, we can see the average age of mothers of childbirth in England and Wales. This is the first child here, second, third, and fourth. You can see it's 29.2. Now, why is this significant? Go back to when I told you about the decrease in egg numbers and the quality of the egg numbers. It's down to advanced maternal age. Remember, advanced maternal age is 35 years plus. So if you're leaving it longer to have your first child, you're entering that advanced maternal age. The quality of your eggs decrease, and the number of your eggs that you have available decrease as well. And just to remind you of this graph here. So that's a product of senescence. That's an age thing that you can't escape. It's fixed within our biology. The other thing to look at is fertility rates and GDP, gross domestic product. Wealthier countries with a higher income, have fewer babies. This is data from the World Bank. So high-income countries have 1.5 babies. If you look at low-income countries, 4.5. And you can see this in the data here. I know it's difficult to see in the slide, but you can see the birth rates per woman by income level. On the bottom here is the average income per country, and on this here you have birth rates. And you can see Singapore, Luxembourg. Luxembourg has the highest GDP in the world, or one of the highest. United Arab Emirates, United States, UK is in there somewhere, New Zealand, Namibia. Then if you go up here, you've got the African countries in African continent. Poorer countries have more children. That's what I'm saying. The other thing is this Human Development Index. This is a measure of.
Sorry, Michael, can I ask a question that kind of links into that that's just been asked online?
Yeah.
What is the ratio, if any, between availability of contraception?
That is the thing as well. Contraception does have an impact on fertility rates because people are people are choosing. This is another thing. It's part of the cultural thing. People are choosing not to have children as well, which I'll come to that in the next slide or so. So the Human Development Index measures basically the well-being of individuals within the country or the country itself. So it measures the availability of good healthcare, education, and other factors that can increase the well-being. And it goes from 0, I suppose, and then up to 1 here. So that's your highest here. So you can see countries that are close to 1, which is the highest you can get, have very low fertility rates. And this data demonstrates from 1975, you can see a decrease here in total fertility rates down here with human index here. So there's a kind of cutoff around here, 0.9. We have an increase. That's because when women or couples have more money, they can afford to have more children, or to have their fertility rates increase a little bit because they can afford childcare, they can afford nannies, etc. Now, there's another aspect as well. Remember, fertility is not just pathophysiological. It's not a disease, not just a disease of the reproductive system. It's a choice as well. So we have social and cultural shifts as well. This is where contraceptive would come in. So people are deliberately becoming voluntary childless. They're choosing not to have children for many reasons. Choosing not to have children because children are expensive. They feel they can't afford to have kids, can't afford childcare. They're making this choice. There's also an act of antinatalism. which is more of a push towards deliberately not having children because of a moral process here. That having more children just adds more burden to the planet with the population growth.
Excuse me, are you familiar with the Mouse Utopia experiment?
No. Well, you can tell me after the talk. Anyway, so globally, we're seeing this dramatic fall in human fertility rates. And, is that a good thing? Because when you look at fertility decline, you should see population decline. That's what you should see. So that's a good thing, isn't it? So we look at the globe, there is overpopulation. Like I said, we're over 8 billion now, and we're heading towards 10 billion. And as a result, you have ecological degradation, which causes biodiversity loss, by environmental pollution, which results in climate change. And this is all existential. This is happening. This is happening now, and it's been happening for many years. And we're at a tipping place where some of these things are irreversible. Overpopulation causes increased conflict as well. So maybe it's good. Fertility rates, if you decrease them, that will settle the overpopulation issue. But does it? It doesn't, because what we are seeing is a decrease in population, a decrease in fertility rates, an increase in population, but it's an older population is what we're seeing. And this causes a demographic transition. We're shifting from high birth rates to high death rates to low birth rates and low death rates. And this transition is usually brought about with increasing prosperity, with increasing GDPR, etc., and innovation and healthcare. When we look at demographic transitions, it's classified into stages 1 to 5, and they can be described like a pyramid. It's a population pyramid. Here you see high birth rates. In this one here, stage 1, it's expanding. High birth rates, rapid fall in each upward age group due to high death rates and short life expectancy. Okay. Stage 2, it becomes expanding, so it's high birth rates and a fall in death rates as people are living much better, a slightly longer life expectancy. In stage 3, it's stationary, so you have a decline in birth rates, low death rates, and more people living to old age, and that's what we're about now. And then stage 4, low birth rates, low death rates, higher dependency ratio, and longer life expectancy. So you can see from stage 1, the difference from stage 1 and stage 4. It becomes more of a tower block than a pyramid. And if you look at countries that have lower GDPR, lower income countries with high fertility rates and high mortality rates, like Niger and Somalia, you can see the pyramid, the population pyramid here. That's at stage 1. Now you look at if you look at the age groups here, so the 60 to 64s, so anything above 64, 65 is considered the old age group. You can see there's quite a few of those, but more below 15-year-olds. Okay, so their fertility rate will be increasing. And it's above replacement level. It's not great because you don't live too long, but you're still having enough children to kind of replenish that. If you look at the UK and France, you can see it's more tower block. And this is concerning. So we're not having the kids born, the babies born, to replace well below replacement level. Same with France as well. And that's a concerning feature. You don't really want to see that. If you look at Spain and Italy, it's becoming inverted. So you have, in Italy here, you've got more 60-year-olds than you have babies born. And that's not a good sign either in terms of replacement level. It's very low replacement level. China and Russia, a similar story. China has a crisis in terms of its population, even though it's a very populated country. They're not having many children, and they're reaching a kind of a crisis age here. Russia is in the same scenario here. But a good case to see a demographic shift over the last 60 years is the Republic of Korea. And you can see from the stage 1 how this has changed, transitioned into the state it's in now. Korea is has a fertility rate of 0.7. Schools are shutting down. Universities are in the dire straits. There's not enough people to fill the workplace. So you can see how damaging that can be in terms of demographic transition. So when we look at the aging population, you can see that the darker colours here is about 15% or more. This is from 2022 in a paper published here in Nature, NPJ. You can see a portion of 65 plus year olds around the globe. It's estimated by 2050 that the above 65-year-olds will double to about 1.55 billion. And that will be about 16% of the total population. And in the UK, by 2050, the Office of National Statistics estimate that 1 in 4 people will be 65 or older. Okay. So what does that mean? What is the impact of that? Well, you have this what's known as increased old age dependency ratio, where there'll be workforce shortages. You don't have enough people to come in to fill the workplaces that are required to maintain public services, to fill the healthcare system, and also for pension sustainability. If you don't have these people being born into that society, you're going to tip that increased old age dependency, increase that. What does it have on education systems as well? This is evident now and materializing in the Republic of Korea. Fewer children enrolled in schools. That's going to have an impact on teaching and schools, where you have school closures and mergers and teacher workforce adjustments. This has a long impact on universities. So we have fewer children finishing school. The university age students are fewer as well. And as a result, fewer students going into university. And this will have financial strain to universities, course closures, staff redundancies, and mergers. This is what's happening in Korea right now, and parts of Italy as well. So that demographic has shifted to a worrying state. So what are the solutions? What can we do about this? Well, we could use assisted reproductive technology. So IVF. IVF is a great innovation, medical innovation. Since 1978, Louise Brown was born. She was the first IVF baby, 25th of July, 1978. Edwards, Steptoe and Prudy established this wonderful technique. Edwards won the Nobel Prize in 2010, I think it was. And since then, since 1978, there's been about 13 million babies born through IVF. Now that's good. It's a blip, but it's good. However, when you look at the success rates for IVF, 28% of live births are from IVF. That means that for each cycle, for each embryo that's transferred, only 28% of those will give rise to a live birth. And that's not great in terms of the medical outcome for any procedure. 28% success rate. And age is the dependent factor as well. So you can see here, between 18 and 34-year-olds, it's 36% or thereabouts. And if you age 38 to 39-year-olds and 40s, you can see it drops below 20% and quite dire at 40% here. So this is down to the limited capacity for fecundability of women as well. The quality of the oocytes or eggs that she has can impact her IVF outcome as well. So IVF has its limitations. When we look at this, 13 million babies born, it works out about 0.5% of global births through IVF. And that is not too bad. And about 5 to 10% of births in some high-income countries, which is okay as well. But it comes with its caveat. And its caveat is this. When you have 5 to 10% of births born in a country through IVF, what you're doing is increasing the infertile population. So if you have men that have male factor infertility, and you take the sperm from that man, and you inject that into the egg through a process called intracytoplasmic sperm injection, you're basically following that infertile trait that he has into that baby, where you kind of recycle that whole, perpetuate that whole issue of infertility. And that's not a good thing. It's great if you're in the IVF industry, but it's not a good thing if you're trying to fix the decline in fertility rates. The other thing as well, it's expensive. And you have IVF affordability inequality. So only those people that can afford IVF will be able to have IVF. Again, that doesn't fix the fertility problems. So what else can we do? Okay, you have fertility decline. What are the solutions? One thing is sex and fertility education and awareness. Bringing this into schools and educating young girls that they have a limited fecundity early on, and also boys as well. Just because boys, we don't have the menopause or have a window of reproduction, men's sperm quality declines with age. Advanced paternal age is about 45. And it's not just the quality of the sperm, it's the offspring that older men produce. Men that produce babies at past age of 45 those offspring have a propensity to develop developmental disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, like schizophrenia and ADHD and autism. There's a higher increase in that. So the quality of the men's sperm decreases with age as well, because it's accumulating mutations over time. So sex education and awareness is good. The other thing is supportive parental care and affordable childcare. Incentivize couples or individuals to have babies, have more babies, give them that opportunity that it just makes it more affordable. One of the cultural shifts to not having a baby or having a standard family is affordability. They can't afford childcare, or they can't afford the costs that comes associated with child. And this takes a social change. This takes a move away from this antinatalism, or a move away from voluntary childlessness, or a move away from not wanting to have children, into this social change, which fits in with the kind of links in with the support of parental care and affordable childcare. The other thing which we can't ignore is the aging population. So promote healthy aging. So even though the population is getting older, promote healthy aging. The longevity, as the people get older, they should be promoted to be more healthy and more productive, i.e. increasing the working age. And I'm not saying increasing pension, I'm saying giving the opportunity to go back into the working environment so that fill those workplaces that the younger people cannot fill. We also have to consider immigration policy change. So changing how we view immigration. We need younger people coming in to fill those workplaces in order to maintain the societies that we're used to. And we can't take from the poorer countries to fill our workplace. There's a moral issue as well. If you're taking the healthcare practitioners from, say, Africa or Asia to fill our hospitals, it takes away from their places as well. We can embrace technology and artificial intelligence. That may help in some ways. It may help with automation. It may help with some things to fill the employment gaps that the young people are not available. What I would say is what's really required is an increase in research funding. Research for reproductive science, in particular andrology, male reproductive science, is very poor. It's very, very hard to get funding for this. What happened was with IVF, that whole industry damaged research in andrology, because all you need is enough sperm to fertilize enough eggs that are made available during that technology. So if you can get the sperm from a man either through his testicle or through the ejaculate, you don't have to do any more research. That's fine. But there's a massive need for it, because male infertility and sperm quality is an indicator of man's overall health. There's a very close link between cardiovascular disease, risks of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and various cancers with poor fertility. Poor fertility goes side and side with overall poor male health. So andrology is an important factor that we need to increase there. What I would say as well, we need to remove or control reproductive toxins from the environment. That's a major issue as well. These endocrine disrupting chemicals, they're causing havoc in ecosystems, they're causing infertility in invertebrates and vertebrates of fish, etc., waterways across the globe. And that's feeding it back into humans as well. But also, we need a sustainable, responsible consumption and a healthy earth. We need to maintain the planet. We need to be able to not drive with the foot down with this climate change and ignoring exactly what's happening. It is an existential crisis, and that has to go part and part with our interest in making a healthy population as well. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Really super interesting stuff. Quick observation and a quick question, if that's all right. The whole overpopulation thing, I think, is not. I don't think that's really an issue. For me, it's like young people create rock and roll, they create hip hop, they create culture. And if you really want to be like, at the other end of that, everybody 60, 70, 80 plus, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, which is interesting about advanced maternal age and first-time motherhood, right? Because at some point they're going to cross. Is that right? Yeah, because first-time motherhood is increasing all the time. Yeah. And advanced maternal age is, I don't know what that is, 35 or something. At some point, the age of the first-time mother is going to be above the advanced maternal age threshold, at which point, the logic is that, it's going to, basically, it's going to decrease massively. Just, do you know what I'm saying is that the idea that our kids that we're having has this linear kind of regression is an illusion, because once it hits that tipping point, it's going to go back.
That's broken model. So if you want to have pure eggs, poor quality, past age 35, 37, that's where it's going to hit really fertility issues. So if they're leaving it longer, like you said, the first child, they're going to find it more difficult.
But we can date that, right? To date the end of Western civilization.
But then you have assisted conception. So you will probably have a cohort of people or population of people that only reproduce through assisted reproduction or IVF. And you don't want that either. That's
Against the sort of background of decreasing fertility and increasing urbanisation, is there any evidence that when the population decreases for all that varied of factors to a certain level, is it likely that the fertility rate will stabilise and maybe even grow as like plasticizers, PFAs, bar tubs, that kind of thing, as those maybe decrease as population falls? Is there any evidence for that, or is it just potentially it could just go straight?
I'm not aware of the evidence for that, but the prediction is when you have an increase in GDPR, the HDX, the Human Health Index, whatever it is, you get an increase in fertility rates. So the irony of it is the more money.
As the GDPR increases, you get an increase in fertility rates.
Yeah, eventually. So what happens is people. The irony of it is the wealthier country gets, the lower the fertility rates, because what they're realizing is that they have more material wealth, more disposable money, or income. So they don't want to spend it on buggies and childcare. So they're realizing that money can go into themselves. But when they earn more money, then they realize they can afford children. See, that's why you have that blip, that rise. When you see that figure from 1975 to 2018, I think it was, they can afford it more. But you're going to have a segregated society of people who can afford to have children and people who can't. Yeah.
Based on what you just said, people who can afford to have children, people who can't. The African nations are having far more children. They can't afford to have them, but they have them. Not a contradiction.
Their fertility rate is declining as well, and you find in some African countries that where the GDPR is increasing, their fertility is coming down. So Niger is about 6 children per woman. That's coming down as well. So they will eventually come down.
Well, as was said by the gentleman here, will that not stabilise over time, where eventually all the old people die, and eventually we have a stable supply of people to run through life's course, as it were?
Yeah, you'd also have a supply of people that fill our work or gaps in our working workforce as well.
It's a question, Michael, online actually about that. There should be a question, or maybe just an observation, a comment. There should be incentives, like there has been with some large companies, to freeze eggs and have children when careers and finances are sorted.
Yeah, the whole egg freezing thing, that kicked off, but I think it was Amazon or one of the companies who are providing the services or paying for the services to freeze eggs. The problem with egg freezing is that women who have the eggs frozen in the UK and other countries, they're already in the mid to late 30s. The quality of those eggs have decreased by the time they get there. The utilization of those eggs that are frozen is low as well, but the live pregnancy from those frozen eggs are low as well. They're not that great. That whole egg freezing technology is still relatively new, and we don't know the long-term effects of it either. So it's not a good thing.
So on the first slide, you said you have the global total fertility rate, which is 2. Do you have any evidence or data on what the ratio of those babies, all those children, are they distributed equally amongst all women?
No.
Or is it, some will?
Yeah, it's a good question. Total fertility rate is it's an estimate of the number of babies a woman will have in her reproductive life. But it depends on, it's called age-specific or relative ages. So 15 to 24 might have more, 34 to 37 may have fewer. So what they do is they combine those and do some sums and then come up with that ratio or that fertility rate.
I was just getting, I read an article saying that the amount of childless women is going up.
Yeah.
Some women will still have three children or 4. It'll just, so they're making up for the number, or they're averaging the number.
Yeah, but overall, the total fertility rates are decreasing. Yeah.
Yeah. Is anyone actually seeing this as a problem, this massive explosion of infertility, decreasing people going to university, decreasing numbers of people able to go to university and people declining numbers of people in the workplace and schools shutting, etc., when the alternative is obviously all those old people, but a load of young people, and that exponentially increasing as time goes on, and then, competition for universities, and everyone goes to university, and then there's competition for jobs, so which is worse? And on a slightly less serious note, you said, sorry, I'm just taking my notes, that as sperm over the age of when men over the age of 45, and sperm quality decreases because of accumulated mutations. I was always taught that eggs are there, since, as you say, 20 weeks of in the womb, but sperm was remade through a man's life. So how can the mutations accumulate?
Well, in the testes, you have spermatogonial stem cells.
Okay.
So they give rise to sperm. And a man will produce 1,500 sperm every second from puberty up to the time he drops, and to old age. But those cells, those stem cells, spermatogonial stem cells, they divide. So they divide through mitosis. And as a result, they will accumulate mutations and errors during the life course of that man. And that's what's causing the issues with the older man's sperm.
What about the first question about which is worse?
You'd have to repeat that.
So,
Summarise.
So with an aging population, with lower decreasing birth rates, etc., accumulated all these old people, not getting young people coming in. That's right. And which is worse, that with fewer young people, or too many old people and too many young people as well? Like, we're already making such a mess of the planet with just the old people. Do we really need? Is it just a relief actually that there's not this massive number of extra young people coming in?
Okay, well, you go to an example would be Korea, the Republic of Korea, right? We're seeing schools closing, mergers. We're seeing universities struggling as well. You're seeing towns that have no children. In fact, you're seeing restaurants and other places saying no children allowed. And having a child is a rare thing to see. It's like some sort of unicorn running around. So there's that, and you don't have the kind of younger people coming in, because my immigration is not favourable to Korea. Not everyone wants to go to Korea, so you're having issues filling those workplaces, and those older people are they don't have the care or infrastructure to look after them. So that's one thing. The other thing is what you're saying is have loads of old people and loads of young people. If you look at the pyramids, it's not really loads of old people. It's usually mortality rates, people die and then they're replaced. So it's usually the triangle pyramid.
We sure the best thing to do is not help people that have more babies, but redistribute the people on the planet. That's probably hard to do.
You could do that, but I mean, would you move to Korea? This is the thing, redistributing people across the planet. It's not a practical thing to do. What it would do is, like I was saying, the options are healthy aging. The options are giving them more. You have to be for a sustainable planet. There's a lot of things that need to work in order for have some harmonious existence within the planet without causing it more damage than it is, but also without we're keeping the infrastructure. You want say a town like Manchester. If you cut this town off from any influx of people and you just let it go with its fertility rates declining, what's going to happen to this town? Who's going to drive the buses? Who's going to look after you? That's the image that you have to see within local locations.
how much can we actually influence it though, you know, or is nature just going to ultimately take us across all these places and just going to see what happens? That's what I.
They're policies. I mean, we know this is happening, and people who are very pro-planet and anti-natalism think it's a great idea. You have fewer people. Myself, I'm an environmentalist. I love biodiversity. I think this is a horrible shame what's happening, but I also like humans, some of them. And I think you have to. I can't do much, but I'm not a policymaker. I'm a reproductive scientist who sees what's going on here. So it's really down to governments and industries and whatnot to try fixes.
So is it a function of public health to increase fertility rates? To raise screening or something, just decrease conceptions on public health and then increase fertility rate?
It's more than that, because there's a cultural shift. People don't want kids, or not many kids. So regardless of how much you can put into a system to encourage children or people to have children, to encourage healthy lifestyle, to offer IVF, people don't want to have kids. It's a cultural thing. So that's what I'm saying about the societal change. You have to shift it to more pronatalism and encourage people to have kids, but give them the support as well.
A long time ago, I was told that the excess mortality of youth, particularly males, was down to males getting involved in wars and just being idiots and more dying. Is there any evidence for the change in the gender balance of, or gender ratio, of births over time?
Well, you can look at, you see the China pyramid, or the China demographic. That's very much skewed.
So
that was a policy that they put in it.
The population was selecting for.
Yeah. But if you look at Russia, you can see that it's skewed towards the female, because a lot of the men have been killed off in wars. Not just in wars, but killed off because of their poor, healthy lifestyles as well. There are lots of alcoholics.
So the question is really about actually the birth ratio rather than later on.
Right.
Is there any change in that?
I don't think so. I think it's still 50-50. Slightly more, because it's
There's the religious aspect as well, isn't there? Some religions don't allow you to use contraception, and maybe it's changed over the years now, but more babies will go on to some religion.
There is, yeah.
And also some, I think Italy and France at one stage, especially in the 80s, encouraged women to have children by increasing their maternity benefits. So I don't know whether that played any part in it. You said, here, particular sex, that you can't take the pill or you can't have an abortion or something like that.
There is a religious influence on fertility. So some religions, particularly Catholics or Christians, some Christians within the US, some sects in there, the Mormons, they have higher fertility rates. But then do you want a society where the majority of people are a religion, if you know what I mean? If all that's reproducing are a particular type of religious people, is that good?
They're obviously still out there, because you maybe see them in Rome.
Yeah.
Waiting for the vote. They're all out there, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's still a high religious, still lots of Catholics around there who probably don't practice contraception. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, it's not just Catholics, but there is a link. That means even the religious, staunch religious, are moving away from children because they can't afford it.
Do you see a political divide between people who are having children and people who are not? Like, for example, will more right-wing or left-wing countries have a greater or lower fertility rate, and what are the implications of that if that is the case?
I don't think it is. There is pro-children in the US right now, with the Wade versus Roe, revoking that. The view on abortion, the ban on abortion in some states, that's pronatalism. That's trying to increase, not to increase the fertility rates, but there's a political and religious influence there, and it's mostly biased towards the right wing. But I'm not too sure if it's a more global thing in terms of politics.
I remember the 1960s. So what happened then?
No idea, tell me.
I think it was the summer of love and all the marijuana and stuff. But what was it? Could it have been that?
Could be that. It's also I think it was the baby boomers. Was that the 1950s?
Oh,
But the 1950s.
That's a complicated thing.
Those babies born in the 1950s would have been of birthing age, about 1960s or thereabouts, 40s, 50s.
Well,
come in and then would have.
I was born in 1951, so I come in that section. But I had my first baby in 1974,
Right.
So I missed up. I was busy. I was at university, and I didn't particularly notice that there were more babies being born in the 60s than other times. But could be just where I lived or anything. But it's a very interesting point that there was that blip all over the world, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think the only thing I can think of was to do with the Cold War, which was a big thing then.
Yeah.
And I think people thought, let's have babies while we can. Who knows what's going to happen? And it was that kind of attitude of enjoy life while we've got it, because we might not have it long. So it might have been something like that if it was worldwide. Yeah, interesting.
Just a purely anecdotal observation. My observation is that people become less interested in children, but in the end, so in a gendered and obvious way, women give birth, men don't give birth, and so men follow women and the culture that women set. And my observation is that I've met so many like undergraduates and such, and I remember meeting a 27-year-old and we were talking about her career and all the rest and what her plans were, and I said, "Do you plan to have children?" And she looked at me like she gave me a strange look, like children, So my observation is that young women, big generalization, but the interest in motherhood is just not there anymore. I just don't think young women are interested in having children anymore. I mean, maybe there are just lots of options, social media. I want to be an influencer. I want to be this. I want to be that. But I don't meet a lot of young women that say I want to be a mother. I just don't hear it at all.
Yeah, that's the cultural shift you're saying.
Yeah.
As one of them, I think it's not just social media. It's things like financial pressures. We're not earning the same amount that would kind of lead to the same you don't get the same comeback with your money that you used to. There's an expectation for career that you didn't maybe used to have. So whilst it might seem like young women don't want to necessarily have children, it's that there are so many new pressures that we haven't had to deal with before.
That's happening in China. So they lifted the one-child ban, or the one-child policy, and now they're encouraging teaching. Because they had that time when the ban on the one-child policy has been a couple of decades now, that society is used to just having fewer children. And they're living in small flats, and they're living in small apartments, and they can't afford them. So they're trying to incentivize people to have more babies, but the infrastructure and the housing doesn't allow that.
Yeah, think about places like Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Some of the most expensive cities on earth.
Yeah.
How can you possibly expect to bring up a child with, the same things that your parents might brought you up with? I've got a good job. I'm 29. I've got a partner, and I still feel like I'm struggling to maybe provide the same things that my parents might be able to provide for me. And it's kind of sad, but it's just it's another priority rather than a main priority.
Yeah, that's common. It's common reason. Oh yeah, sorry.
Helen online has patiently waited quite a while. Question is, how much research funding is there per head, and how does the UK research funding compare to other EU countries?
I think it's less than £1 per head for reproductive, particularly for male reproduction research, andrology research. I don't know about the female research; it's not my area, but it's very little, and that causes an issue with doing any research into the cause of male fertility. Yes, clearly.
I'd just like to suggest that maybe the paradigm is broken. Why would you expect young women to give up economic opportunities? Hundreds of years having to depend on their male partners to support, and at last they got their freedom. Why would they not want to enjoy it for as long as they can? So maybe the answer is to find some technology that enables us to defer that window of opportunity until they've had their fill of economic hedonism, to which they're entitled.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is assisted reproductive technology like egg freezing. You can have ovarian tissue freezing as well. Those are things that can possibly answer that. But
maybe freeze their eggs at a younger age. Maybe give them economic assistance to have their eggs frozen at teenagers.
Yeah.
If you have a baby when you're a bit older, playing football on a Sunday afternoon is a bit knackering.
Yeah, there's that as well. So it's the cultural shift again, and it's to support for mothers or young mothers to be able to have their family and the careers and the jobs and everything else.
And actually, we're all getting older and staying fitter, and so I run 10K 3 times a week, and I'm 72. So why wouldn't everybody be able to do the same?
Not everybody.
Well, not today, but people coming forward.
Promotion of healthy aging.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something that starts very young.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I'm saying the paradigm's broken. There are too many bits that don't mesh together well. We need a new paradigm.
Yeah.
That's down to the politicians.
It is, yeah.
I might ask something. I have an issue with the expression decreasing mortality. I mean, that's not true, is it? Because everyone dies. You say decreasing mortality. What you're talking about is a completely different shift in how Western countries, I'm talking about America and Australia as well, how they live. So decreased mortality isn't true. We all die. We're just living longer. What you're talking about?
The average age at which you die.
Yes, that's not decreased mortality. What you're talking about is a completely different economic and social pattern that is coming across.
That's why
and what we're also saying is that perhaps people are retiring too younger, the older population, and I'm one of them, I'm an old woman. I'm not contributing, if you like. And the issue is there aren't enough people to look after the very young.
Yeah.
And not looking after the very young is an issue as well. It's not declining mortality. We're all going to die.
It's a demographic shift.
It's a sort of rather than something like that. It's something like that, isn't it?
Yes, it's the dependency ratio, old age dependency ratio.
And young age dependency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ratio. Yeah. And I discovered the politics of it, I mean, all the immigration problems that we're having in Western Europe are because we haven't got the working population to look after like the care workers. So
exactly. Yeah.
I'm not commenting on whether it's right or wrong. It's an issue but
Anybody else got any questions, Michael?
I'm just wondering how improving the environmental, the endocrine disruption is, how well understood the science is in that area of phthalates.
Very well. In animal models, it does cause a decrease in the reproductive physiology and anatomy, etc. In humans, it's a bit difficult to do. So you can measure the metabolites, or you could measure those compounds in blood or semen or urine.
Yeah.
But the levels are much lower than what would cause an effect in animals. So it's very difficult to discern or pinpoint particular chemicals that will cause that damage.
Some sort of embryonic effect.
They're showing it's not. The latest study showing that it doesn't have that much effect in the development of the gonads in the males in utero, but it might be more developmental later on. And it's in synergy as well, so not working as a single compound on a single entity, if you like, but working in synergy with other things, plus lifestyle factors as well. So it's this exposome, it's what you're exposed to. And that's exposome from pre-birth, birth, right through your life course. All these things can have an effect on your health, including reproductive health.
Is it phthalates? Is that the main?
Phthalates, yeah. Bisphenol A, pharmacoplastics, and all that stuff. Yeah. Exciting.
Scary.
Yes.